Good morning, friends. This is Laura with Potpourri of Life. I hope that you're having a great start to your week between Christmas and New Year's. Ours has been busy. We've been doing some paperwork and we're kind of deciding, what do we want to change, organize. And this is typical of me at the end of the year is I go through the house, I go through the Christmas ornaments, kind of make sure everything in there is what I want. And you and then put things in their place. But I also do like a deep clean at this time of year, so it might not finish by now, but usually between now and the new year and into the first week or two, it's something I do. I just kind of like, it's a new year, it's a new beginning, it's a new start, right? Well, before I get into what I want to talk about, is today what came in the mail was very, very warming to my heart, but it was just very special. David's aunt, who I also consider my aunt, and she may technically, biologically be his, but she's my aunt as well. I got this crocheted angel, and I don't know if you can see it very well, but I'll see if I can get it better. Isn't that beautiful? I love the color. It's purple, and it's kind of my color, and it's also one of my cousins, or David's cousin's favorite color as well. And this is just an angel is a symbol of hope, but I also believe that angels are among us, not just at Christmas. They're among us all the time. And if you've never experienced the presence of angels, they're truly around, but I can't explain it in a way that makes sense to most people. Maybe someday I will. But for now, I just wanted to share what came in the mail, and it's beautiful. I haven't decided if I'll put it in my Christmas ornaments. I sort of don't want to. I kind of want to just hang it somewhere so when I see it, I think of her, but also am reminded of the angels that we have been given. What I do want to talk about is as we transition from Christmas to New Year's and into the next stage of our lives, I wanted to talk about resolutions and what people like to do for New Year's. I've never been a New Year's resolution person where I say, okay, I'm going to lose weight, or I'm not going to eat chocolate, or I'm not going to do this. Because the purpose of a resolution, New Year's resolution, is to make a change in your life that will improve it. But oftentimes we make it as a promise that gets broken. And so I don't believe in New Year's resolutions because life happens. So that's why I don't do it. If somebody asks me, what are you going to do for a New Year's resolution? It's like, I don't do them. Because I believe that when we encounter something that allows us to open our eyes, open our hearts to say, I can improve on that. I can make a difference. And that can come in the form of somebody talking to me and say, how you handled this wasn't a way that was comfortable for me. And I was like, oh, tell me more so I can learn. And we have to be open to that kind of thing. But there's other stuff that we can do to improve our lives too. You encounter a new health issue that it's like, now you got to go on medication, but you're fighting the idea that you have to use medication. So what do you have to do? You have to change your lifestyle. You have to change your diet. And that's why I'm big on this, because it wasn't what a doctor said. Okay, may have been diagnosis, but it was because I decided I'm not going to be stuck on medicine. That was a change I made. But now I'm going through another change. And before I go, I want to share the definition of resolution. Okay, and there's a few different sentences to explain it. The state or quality of being resolute, firm determination. So if you're going to make a New Year's resolution, it's got to be a determination. Are you going to do it ongoing? Are you going to go on a diet and then 2 months down the road forget it? A firm decision to do something. A course of action determined or decided on. The act of solving or explaining a problem or puzzle. Resolving or concluding of a dispute or disagreement. The part of a literary work in which the complications of the plot are resolved and simplified. A formal statement of a decision or expression of opinion put before or adopted by an assembly such as the U.S. Congress. We won't go there. But all of these are all about making a decision. Are you one that can do a resolution? Can you sit down and say, okay, I'm going to do this? Let me tell you how hard a resolution is. And I think sometimes, in terms of Congress, you have to put it in writing. In a business plan, you have to put it in writing so that you can see that this is what we're going to go for. And if somebody points out, hey, this is not part of the business plan, you're allowed to come back and say, oh yes, you got to regroup and say, oh yeah, we got to stay online and stay focused. And sometimes simply writing down our resolution can be good. I don't see it so much as a resolution in terms of my life, because life happens. And over the past couple of months, actually over the past year, there has been things that have just, our lives have changed. And when I was doing our Christmas letter, and I didn't put everything in it that I normally would, because I didn't want it to be forever long, and to my husband it's still long, and to me it wasn't long enough. But I took out the pieces that really didn't matter. But some of the things we did was building a greenhouse, because I was determined that I was going to have a garden. My heart was set on the best garden possible. So in January through February, I was just grappling at all the information I could find to learn. That is a resolution of change. You learn. And you can do that. And we'll go back to the typical one that people do, is to exercise, to lose weight. You can make a determination, but you got to understand your goal. And you got to be determined on the direction and how you're going to go there. And sometimes the diet you choose might not work for your body. So you kind of have to adapt. The same thing happens with the gardening. Our soil isn't like other people's soil. Our weather was not conducive in some moments, because we had some extreme heat that killed a lot of my plants. Life goes on. Was I disappointed? Yes, but not really, because it was something new for me. It was something I was excited about. I was out there, I was making raised beds, I was out there digging the garden, I was doing a variety of things to try to make a difference for a better garden this year. Typically my garden is herbs and flowers and a few vegetables here and there, your typical tomato or your typical pepper or whatever. And I really didn't always pay attention to them in the same way, because farm stands are close by, right? Well, I didn't want to spend a lot of money at the farm stand, so that was my goal. And so as we progressed, I realized that, you know what, because I can't grow a lot in our house, because our house is not very bright. I mean, it looks bright behind you because I got some lighting here. But it's not conducive to growing plants for the outdoors. I did have a light set up, and I had peppers did really well from seed. But when I transitioned them outside, and I was introducing them, but there was one day I left them out a little too long, and so they got shocked. So was I disappointed? I was disappointed in me, not in the situation, because I still had other seeds, but I learned, don't do that. So I adapted, and then I said, okay, I need a greenhouse of sorts, because when we get these cold winds, these unexpected winds, how can I protect the plants? I needed a greenhouse. I didn't have a greenhouse. I didn't have the money for a greenhouse. And then I was looking over in a corner, and it was like, I've been bugging my husband to get rid of this gazebo that got hit by some of our trees one year, and we ended up cutting those trees down. And so it was just sitting there, and I'm like, I thought he was going to kind of go cash it in, but the amount of money you were making on steel and that kind of stuff was minimal. It wasn't really worth the gas to go down. So finally I was looking at it. I said, honey, could you make me a greenhouse? And I said, use that framework. And he goes, well, it wasn't, there was some parts that got dented. I said, it's okay. I'm not looking for the Taj Mahal. I'm looking for a functional greenhouse. And so I laid out a plan of what I wanted. And so we went to the lumber store. We went to a small business, and that's where I got that. And then we had to go to the big box for the clear roofing. so that the water would come down. And I said, and while we're at it, can we put some gutters on it so we could save the water? Because many people who have gardens know that you really are dependent upon the water. So we already had the 55-gallon barrel, so we collected the water. So in the beginning of our year, we're transitioning into how we're going to do the garden. And I'm getting to a point with this. So we adapted each step of the way, and we did have some dry spells, and we also had spells where we had too much water. And then we had spells where the sun was killing my plants. I lost my peas. I had some other areas. I thought I was going to lose my tomatoes, but what we did was I said, okay, we need to go get a shade cloth. And so I had some old sheets, and I took them and I put them up over until I could acquire a shade blanket that they sell. I had to save for it, but I got it. And I learned that, you know, our plants can be out in the sun, but sometimes with the way things are changing in our world, sometimes some areas of our yard are too bright or too hot, so they were killing my plants. So I did a lot of learning, and I was adapting. And then we decided, because of how the world is changing, and I've spoken of this before, we go to the grocery store and we're kind of like being robbed. I had a little bit. Last time I went, we got about 10 items. And I said to my husband, was it like $80? He goes, yeah. That's a lot of money, you know, when you average it out and stuff. And I'm like, you know, so what I was doing earlier on, yes, I would go to the farm stand for the things I couldn't purchase because I wanted to can things to have on hand. And then, but then I decided on eggs. I was going to have chickens and we were going to have eggs, and we're starting to have eggs. Now this comes to another pickle. We had to build a chicken coop. We had to build a run around it. And then as the weather changed, we had to do something to protect them from the wind. And so my thought is, let's put some plastic up. And then we had some real bad winds coming in with that last snowstorm. And I said, David, these doors face directly into their coop, which we close up. They have double doors for the coops so that we shut it down at night. But I said, the doors that go into the run, I said, I think they need more protection. So we adapted. We didn't take any more plastic. We took the grain bags and covered them. So if you saw that video with the wreath that I made them, those bags, I just repurposed them because they're doing the job. If you stand in front of it inside the coop, you're not cold, because I've gone in. It's actually quite comfortable, but there's plenty of airflow so that they're able to breathe and all that. So we're adapting. And then our chickens did something to us yesterday. And where am I going? You'll catch on in a moment. My husband went out to get the eggs and bring the food out, because for the last few days, I haven't been feeling myself. And so he came in, he goes, Laura, I said, what? Any eggs? He goes, well, one of the chickens had an egg in its mouth. I said, what? I said, and he forgot. One of the things I later learned on, he forgot to clean up. And so I went right, I said, okay, we got to stop this now. We got to stop this now, because once they start breaking their eggs and consuming it, you could have a problem on your hands. You could have egg eaters, and then you have to do something else with your chicken. Instead of eggs, you have a different form of protein entering your body, because I wasn't going to lose what we've invested in. Did we kill a chicken? No, we did not. We have not given up. So I still had those porcelain eggs. So I took them and I put them in their nesting boxes, and I did. I looked up online, how can we do this? And a lot of people, this is nothing new. I guess this is something that does happen. So we did a few things. We put the porcelain eggs in there, and the chickens, the ones that I think, there's 2 of them I think are doing this, they were in the nesting box, kicking them out. I'm like, are you serious? So I didn't go into the coop yesterday, but last night I went in and I noticed that one of the chickens was kind of like pecking at a part of the step up into where they nest. I'm like, oh my gosh, it was all yellow. So I came in, I said, David, I said, did you not clean up after that? You saw the egg? He goes, No, they were outside running and they were chasing one another for the shell. Chickens are funny. But they irritated me yesterday. You know, because if they see one have something, like if I only brought one leaf of kale out, they would chase each other for that kale. So a bird had an eggshell in its mouth, so they were chasing it. And he thought that it was outside. So when I went into the coop and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I went in, got some warm water, and just went back out and I cleaned it up. And I said, David, you have to check the coop, because when they break them, they're coming down out of the nest box, hitting that onto the floor. So we have to kind of clean it. He didn't know that. He didn't order these chickens. I did. He helped me go get them. He helped me make the coop, but it was my responsibility. So I wasn't mad at him. I was disappointed that I didn't think to ask him. But is it my fault? No. Is it his fault? No. We're still newbies at having chickens. So I said, okay, was I disappointed? Yes. You know, anybody who says they're not disappointed, I don't know. I think you would be, because that means one egg, which is one serving size, or it could be made into a bread or whatever you're baking. That is a source of food, which is the purpose of raising chickens for us. We don't have a farm of chickens. We have 4. And last night I was thinking about going down to 2 or 3. So we cleaned it up. We put the porcelain eggs back. And so this morning we got up. I got their food ready. We decided we're going to go out a little bit early. No broken eggs, because there wasn't any laid. And he went out a half an hour. We went out a half an hour later. And I didn't bring more food out. I just went out to check for eggs, and we got one more. But then there was another bird in there. We noticed that those porcelain eggs are being, I don't know if they're porcelain per se or what they are, but they were still on it. And he went into the coop this morning, and he says 3 of them were on the floor, because what they do is they kick them around. So I went and I looked for some toys, and basically I just found some little things that I put out in their coop so they wouldn't be bored. What I learned is chickens get bored, and they don't have any green life out there except of what I throw out there. They like to peck, they like to scratch, they like to do that, but they like to be busy. And it's not bright out there for very long in our days, although the days are going to get longer now. And so we're adapting to how chickens behave. The reason I don't make New Year's resolutions is because life happens. My intent, I have some goals, and this is how I do my New Year's, and I don't start it January 1st. I start when the idea comes to me. It was before I started my Christmas letter, and I got that out a little later than I normally do, but I had been working on it for a week, and I was telling my husband, I said, I have some different plans for myself in the new year. You're welcome to join me, or what? And he says, well, what are you going to do? And I shared a little bit of what I want to do with him. And I'm not going to share all of it here. I have some plans that I hope to come through. And once they're written down, some things you have to, because I have to budget for this thing that I want to do. And he's kind of like, are you sure? And I said, yeah, I really do. But what happened was, this year, we were doing all that, and then when David's dad passed, there have been so many family dynamics that have set me back. That has brought me back to a few things that I encountered as a young child. And I said to him, I said, this will not be repeated in my life again. And that means I have to step back. Because what happens when somebody passes, there's a lot of dynamics, there's a lot of emotions, and people behave in a manner that is not, let's say, I want to say doesn't fit their personality, but that's when you realize their real personality. And so I decided I'm going to love these people, but I am not going to be inflicted with pain. I will still have hurt feelings, that kind of stuff, because that's normal. So my resolution to life, and if you recall, I talked about, we have the garden, it didn't go as planned, so we adapt. That's how I'd like to live my life, and that's why I don't make New Year's resolutions, because I can say, hey, I'm going to lose weight. I need to lose weight, by the way. I think it's like 15 more pounds to go, 15 or 20 pounds that I need to lose. I'm not ashamed of that, because I know why I gained it. I know what's causing it, and I know what's keeping me from losing it. And what's keeping me from losing it is my responsibility. So that change is by saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do, not accept negative behavior and just move forward, because negative behavior has an effect on how I eat and how often I exercise. But is it their fault? No, it is my responsibility still to make a change. Now, there's some other things that I'm working on. So that's just one aspect. A lot of times people say their New Year's resolution is to lose weight. And I'm just staying on one because, folks, that's the typical one. And a lot of people want to do that, and then they get discouraged, and then they quit, and all of a sudden they're not at the club or wherever they go to exercise, and it's like, it's a downhill spiral. And that New Year's resolution, it's been forgotten. But for me, life change is something that is ongoing, which is why I think New Year's resolutions are kind of silly unless you say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. You write it down and you're going to stay with it. And that's on your calendar every single day, to lose weight. When you reach your goal, to maintain my weight. Now, I've been watching a few of my friends on Facebook, and they've been losing weight, and they look fabulous. Some of them are using something that I personally wouldn't use, but some of them, they are doing their exercises and they are eating really healthy. And I am so proud of them. I truly, truly am. But they have down days. And you know what makes me even more proud of them? Is after those situations, they get back up and they keep on going. And that's what life is about. That's life change. That's not a New Year's resolution that you take and change and forget about. So no, I don't do New Year's resolutions. But there's some other things that I want to change. Now that the girls are older, they have their own lives, and they're making choices for themselves, which is fabulous. They're not here as often. And as a parent, it can kind of feel lonely at times, thinking, and then I told my husband, I said, it doesn't really matter, because we did our job to raise them. Now's the time for both of us to embrace who we are. We embraced it when we were younger. We were young, naive, and silly, and whatever. And then we did all that we could of being a parent. Oftentimes I thought I failed. And then there was a time where each of them had told me that I did a great job. And then now I'm like, I'm not too sure. But it doesn't matter, because I tried my best. As we enter the new year, I already made the decision of what I'm changing already. And I've been putting into action what I do. So where I'm going is, when you have a New Year's resolution, try not to call it a New Year's resolution unless you are one that says, yeah, this New Year's resolution that I did last year, I'm still doing it. It's made a difference. But if the New Year's resolution is just a temporary change, why don't you change it to new direction, new hope, new future, and then set on your calendar every single day on your cell phone, whatever it is that you go and you see what the date is, that checks your appointments, all that. I don't have a lot of appointments anymore, so it's kind of like weird. I do get an alarm for the chickens every morning because I want to be up and out the door to get, feed them and get them going. Actually, nobody needs to get a chicken going. They're on. They're going the moment you open the door. I don't even have the door open. They hear me outside. So I've had to adapt. Even with the chickens, I had to adapt. Okay, how am I going to apply my morning? But go back to that calendar of you have to get up. Say you have children at home. You have to get them up at certain times. Put on your calendar to say something positive about yourself. If that's not your issue, just have something that comes across to you to encourage you to go through your life. Now, some of you may or may not know, I deal with anxiety, and I am so close to dealing with depression at times. And so I always have to work at avoiding the slump that can happen when I am discouraged by other people. And you know, even though everybody's talking about it, hey, if you have a bad time, call me, that is still not going to help people. People have to, if you are one that is prone to this, the thing that buries us is the fact that people don't call. People don't help. And they say, well, you should have called. They don't understand that sometimes you have a hard time getting out of that slump. They don't understand that. So if you have a friend that truly means what they say, is like, hey, if you're having trouble, give me a call. I'll be there. Give them that call. Make that your New Year's resolution. I have my husband, but I don't have anybody that I call. So I'm dependent on myself to make the changes, because I have not encountered a friend who is there and say, hey, just say something funny to me today. More often than not, I think what my goal is, it's really exciting. I really don't want to share it here on YouTube at this moment, because it's going to be a process. And that's another thing. When you are making changes in your life, let's go to weight. You don't lose 20 pounds in 1 week. Not in a healthy way. It just doesn't happen. So that means to say change takes time. But it has to be intentional change to make a difference. One of the things that I try to do on my channel, and I will continue, and I was at the point of saying, because right now I don't have a lot of numbers of followers, and I thought, you know, maybe this isn't really worth my time. And maybe it's not. And I think I shared this, that I'll know as the year goes on whether or not I will continue doing a YouTube channel. But my goal is, I am not ashamed of my faith. And those of you who have already been following know I am not ashamed of my faith. Does it mean I judge you on how you believe? Not at all. Because what you'll discover with me, if you've got to know me, and my husband knows this, I really don't, I mean, I care about your faith. I care about your destination in the afterlife. But right now, in this moment, I care about you as a person. I might not understand your choices, but you know what? You might not understand my choices. And I think to make a change in this world for all of us, we have to stop putting limits on everybody. We have to stop saying, you have to do this, because it might not be right for them. We need to just embrace everybody for who they are. I was talking to David about this last night, and I said, you know, there's a few things that I really don't care. Some things kind of scare me. But it's just one of those things, it's like, okay, that's just the way they want to be. And that's okay. And there are some things that are happening, and I don't know if I'll discuss it in a future video or not, that it's because I don't understand. And it's partly because of where my values are and my Christian faith is. But if you think I'm judging you because you're not a Christian like I am, no, I don't. I'm just not that person. I don't feel that your choices are, could they be sinful? Only you know. But you want to know something? The one thing that I'm transparent about is I'm not perfect. I am probably the first one to admit that I did something wrong. But one of the things that I have been empowered by over the years is that I will not admit to a wrong that I'm not responsible for. So keep that in mind. Do not become a victim of somebody else's demands on you, on how you're supposed to behave, how you're supposed to look, and what your goals should be to make you better. I used to want to be a nurse. I was an LNA and I loved being an LNA. I loved it. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to be a surg tech. And I did the coursework to do the surg tech. And I did work as a surg tech for about, I think it was about 6 months. And they weren't in the same hospital that I did my LNA work in, because I really loved my LNA. And because it was because I was interacting with patients, and I truly loved that. And then I did like the surgical tech, and I liked the aspect of that because it was the body, when you're in surgery and stuff, there's so much interesting stuff that happens. You get to see a heart pump. You get to see someone have heart transplants. You get to see a variety of stuff. And as you're seeing this, because everybody's body is different, some things might be the same, like knee replacements. It seemed like it was the same thing over and over again. But it's not. One of the things I learned with one of the surgeons, and he was awesome. He was telling me what's going to happen, because it was a redheaded patient. He said, this patient is going to have the opportunity to bleed more. And I said, really? Because my husband's a redhead. I have a daughter who's a redhead. And I was doing the one that sucks out the fluid that is in there. I won't go, if that's gross for you, just kind of bypass those words. And so he says, just be ready that there's going to be a little bit of a change. It's going to be very different than all the other knee replacements. And I was working with another, a PA that is also one of my friends, and she's looking at it, she's smiling, and I'm sitting there like, this is so cool. But you have to be careful with the redheads because they do bleed, and so you have to be very careful. So I can't go into too much detail because that was a few years back, but it was just the aspect of working side by side with surgeons who wanted their techs to learn, to understand, and that one of the things is to be able to anticipate what their needs are. And I enjoyed that. It was really kind of educational, and you learned a lot more than surgery. You learned technology, you learned sterile technique, and there's still times where I'm going around giving the scissor signal to my husband, and he's learned what that is. Or I'll kind of like, there's things that you learn that it's like, okay, I need this, I need the suture. You kind of, I haven't forgotten those little hand signals that you have. And I know you didn't see some of it in the screen here, but and I still do some of that just because it's something I learned and I liked it. And they made sense. So I adapted, and that was a stage of my life that, okay, I am going to do this. And then there was a hiccup. While I was in my surgical tech program, I was getting sicker. I was losing my balance. I was dizzy. I was faint. I was exhausted. And if you guys have not been watching me for a while, this was when I was doing tons of testing. And it was a few years later we figured out what was wrong. And I went through a couple of different physicians until I got to a specialist. And he says, and he was looking at all the different tests. And I mean, I had lots of tests done. He goes, I think I know what's wrong with you. I said, what's that? Because I'd given up. I said, basically, I feel my body is giving up on me. I feel like I am dying. And there was parts of me that my body was like being eaten alive inside. It literally felt like there was something chewing away inside me. And he goes, I think you have Lyme disease. Now, some of you might not understand Lyme disease, but that's when I learned about it. And I'm like, really? And I didn't believe him at first. I said, okay. I said, if this is truly what it is, at least I have an answer for it all. But there's nothing we can do. He goes, actually, there is. I said, okay. I'm not getting excited yet. So he sent me home. He gave me a lot of literature, and I started reading. I picked up the books at the library, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. All the symptoms I was dealing with, and it's far more than what I shared with you just now. I said, this makes sense. We're moody. We have flares of anger without even knowing why. We lose where we're going. We're driving when we forget where we're going. So when you're in the midst of Lyme disease, you're confused because this is not normal for your body. My life changed. So as I was making changes for my life to work as a surgical tech, my body was saying no. God was saying, I wanted you to learn this, but I have another purpose for you. And he does. As life has gone on, I have learned about herbs and how they can help me with Lyme disease. But I've also learned how herbs can help with flus and colds and respiratory and stuff because of things that involve my husband and I and other family members. If they ask me, Mom, what do you use for this? I don't have a problem sharing that kind of stuff. But I can't share my Lyme protocol because every patient, regardless whether it's Lyme, diabetes, cancer, whatever, everybody's body responds differently. So my body was changing. I had a transition. This is why I don't believe in New Year's resolutions, because life happens and we have to adapt. So I have some plans, I have some goals, and I've already started working on them. And so I mentioned like this YouTube channel, I'm going to keep it going. I hope it builds. And no, I'm not making any money. Maybe someday I will, but right now that's not the purpose of it. The purpose is to share what I'm led to share. And I do feel that my faith is important to share. And you know, the days that I really speak on that and you're turned off by it, I understand that you might turn it off. That's not a big deal. Because it's not my choice to make you watch me. You know, that's not my responsibility. I honestly feel that I'm led to do this. Will it grow? Only God knows. Would I like it to? Yes, I do. So if you want to help me in that area, make sure you subscribe and you share and you tell others to follow. But the goal of my channel, the real goal, is to share positive insights. I will share down times too, because that's life. I will be totally transparent with you. And I will always share my faith, my cooking. You might not like the way I cook. That's okay. I made something the other day, and that's what we ended up having for Christmas, was a cottage pie. And I will share more on it when I go to make it. I'll make a second one, because I was just using what I had on hand. And a cottage pie people know as shepherd's pie. And I'll go into details on that. But it's also the poor man's meal. So what it is people use what they have. And so it's really simple. Well, it is simple. It takes a little time. So I'll share some recipes. They may not be for you. Is that a bad thing? No. But you know what? You can adapt. And if you've been watching me, you know that I don't always go by a recipe book. I'm always adapting. Because my taste buds might be different than yours. Some people like it really spicy. Some people like it mild. My husband loves seasonings, but he doesn't like as much garlic as I put in or as much onions. But he's adapting. And I'm adapting so that we're coming to a place where we're okay with it. You know, the amount he wants and the amount I want. I don't like salt. He likes salt, so I just put a little in. And sometimes I don't use it at all. So where am I going with this? My New Year's resolution is to have no resolution. Never have. Never have. My life is an ongoing adaptation to the different curveballs that come my way. And they happen. From going from a garden that I had full ambitions for to, okay, we need a greenhouse. That's going fine, to discovering that not all my plants did well. I still had to purchase some veggies and stuff. To like, oh my gosh, I'm not spending this kind of money on eggs. And the farm eggs were really expensive. So, because those are the ones I do better with. To building a chicken coop, to adapting that coop so that we could keep them warm. Now, chickens, the ones we have, are okay in this cold weather. But I don't think we should just let them stay out there and have the snow pour at them. And we also have to protect them from the owls. We have owls and we have hawks and stuff. So we have a covering over the top to protect them. That is our responsibility. So we have adapted throughout the year. And now we have a chicken killer out there. I mean, an egg eater out there. We hope not. We hope that we've immediately went into action and said, okay, we're going to put porcelain eggs. We're going to do this. And there's one more thing that we're going to do. And, oh, we're going out there more routinely to check for eggs. So instead of 2 times in the middle of the day, we're going out like every hour. They normally lay them in the morning, so about 1 o'clock I won't have to go out there to check. But that's when I usually give them their greens anyway. So life is about adapting. My goal in life, if you want to call it a New Year's resolution, call it a New Year's resolution. As we get older, we become wiser. And with that wisdom, we realize the mistakes we've made in the past. We realize our intent in the past, the mistakes that we made, or stuff that happened. We learned, okay, we can't do it that way, like with the shade cover. Put a shade cover over your garden where it's going to be really sunny. You make changes as you go. That's what life's about. Now, I realize that it's kind of fun to say, hey, I have a New Year's resolution. There's nothing wrong with that. I personally don't believe in them, but that's like, I have my faith. You might not have faith, but we can still respect one another. And that, when we stop and think about our changes, the first person you need to respect is yourself. And I think sometimes when we make resolutions, we're doing it for other people. Even though you're doing it for yourself, are you doing it for somebody else giving you, an applause? Or are you doing it to better yourself? There's nothing wrong with people cheering you on. I know that once we all graduated from the surgical tech program, yeah, we had people there that were really proud of us. That was important because we worked really hard. And it was tedious. The other techs that were in clinics and the hospital and the OR, they're tough, at least where I trained. They were mean. The majority of the doctors were top-notch in terms of teaching and educating, wanted you to understand. But there was 1 or 2, there was 2, that were just plain arrogant. And I learned something from them too. I was told never to speak up to a doctor, never to talk back, always do what they say. And I said, if somebody's being disrespectful, I don't have to take that. And they said, oh, yes, you do. I didn't. I mean, I held my tongue, because there are some instances where there was one time a doctor was just kind of like, things weren't going right, so they were kind of not themselves. And so it was very, very intense. The tension was tight. That person wasn't being disrespectful. He was in the moment of taking care of it. But there were 2 others that were just all about show. I'm smart, this is me, you can't do this. And I spoke up. And one of them, he was throwing things around. He asked for something and I gave it to him. And remember, I'm a new person. I can't anticipate everything. And so I said, okay. And he goes, that's not what I asked for. I said, because I got tired of this. I'd worked with him like a number of times. And I just about had it. And I saw how he treated the residents and stuff. And I'm like, that's exactly what you asked for. That's what I gave you. And the tech who was my preceptor, and she kind of just kept quiet. And he looked over to her and he goes, is that what I asked for? And she goes, it was. He never apologized. That is one thing that I will not take. I will not take abuse from people. If you want to yell at me, have at it. I will not take it, and I will speak up. If that makes you mad, that's on you. That's not on me. Because as I've grown over the years, and this is something I'm still growing on, we have to stand firm in what is right. We need to continue to be kind to one another. And just because I'm a nice person does not mean that I can be mistreated. And it is okay for me to say no. I'm sharing that because those of you who also are trying to make changes to better yourself, one of the areas that if you're not good at this, understand it is okay to say no. Be prepared that if you're always giving to other people, you will disappoint others. All of a sudden, people won't be there because you won't do what they expect you to do because you're always a giver. Sometimes we can't keep giving, and that was one thing I learned with Lyme disease. I didn't have the energy. And then I've learned over these last 3 years, we're almost on to 3, how cruel people have become. And it's getting worse. We thought it would get better. So it is okay to say no. And that's where the transition, I am so excited about the growth I have encountered over the last couple of months because of what I've seen. It's been hard. My heart has been broken. It's been hurt. But I'm going to come out of this because I'm choosing to. And I have plans. I'm not going to sit on the couch and allow the negativity of our world to hold me back. And I realize there's a lot of stuff going on. I know what's going on in there. I see a lot of changes in the healthcare that I am not too fond of. And I'm actually going to be sharing some of that in the upcoming videos. And it's stuff that I've been reading on, and I'm trying to make sure I have all my facts together before I share. And that's one thing that you'll get from me is truth. Now, if I find that something is not quite right, I will come back and correct it, or I'll put it in a caption. So maybe it's my age, 62, and I've just been on this planet for a long time. I've been on these different circuses that is like, you know, I don't have to deal with that anymore because there is joy in our life. If I can lose that 20 pounds I'm working towards losing, I will be happy. I don't care if anybody else is happy for me. I'll be happy for me because all of a sudden my body is going to feel better. When I lose weight, it's not, yes, I look better, but it's about how I feel. And when my weight is at a certain number and I have like a 5-pound variable, I feel good. I feel healthy. And isn't that why we should lose our weight if we're going to make that as a goal? And then there's some other things, choosing. When you have been somebody, a victim of abuse or a victim of anything, you learn, as you heal, you learn that some things are still not acceptable. And it is okay to step back and say, no, but I don't have to take this. But those are some of my goals, but my resolution, if you want to call it that, my life change that is in front of me is a choice of moving, okay, I'm going to do this, and this is my goal. Knowing that goals can be interrupted by weather, chickens, people, death of a loved one or a friend. Your goals can change. So just have a direction. That's what I'm going for. You'll see me with some bad days, and you'll see me with some great days. But each day, I want to move forward with hope. Folks, I talked longer than I anticipated. I wanted it to be half an hour, and it looks like it's 50 minutes. I'm really sorry. So I hope that if you haven't gotten one of these ever, if you don't know how to make them, I don't know where the pattern is. If I can find the pattern, maybe I'll reach out to my aunt and see if she has one. But to be honest with you, I won't be making this because Could I? I suppose I could. But this is special to me because somebody made it for me, or for David and I. David just handed it to me. But this is a treasured gift for me. Folks, I hope you have a great day, and as you come closer to your New Year, that you choose whether it's a New Year's resolution or if it's a life change that you're going to work on every day and not have a calendar dictating when you're going to reach it. So, but one of the things I do, the one thing I do every year, and I do it actually 4 times a year, every season change, is I go through where is my life cluttered. And right now we have the Christmas stuff and we have other things that have come in and stuff. So it's like I take my clutter and I go through it and we ditch it. And I do it New Year's because that's when the new year of bills begin. So I go through and make sure I ditch everything else. Make sure that when I do my taxes, anything older than 7 years gets tossed, burnt, whatever. And we keep moving on. Folks, I hope you have a fabulous day, and I truly, truly hope that the angels are among you and that God is right beside you. God bless you and have a beautiful day.